Hello, Middle Earth Strategy Ball Gamers and LTR SBG team fans. We're here with our journey vlog. We haven't done a vlog in a while, and especially with all three of us playing and stuff. And we're going up to an event in Greenville, South Carolina. Do you guys remember the name of it?
I think it's just the Game Castle MESBG event.
Yeah, so it's a new store, right?
Yep. They just opened up this month, and they're doing a little MESBG event to try and kick up some interest in the area.
So we're going there. It's a 750 point event. I'll go ahead and start. I'm playing my Lake Town. Instead of taking the Chariot, though, I am taking Gandalf. I think that I wanted that extra little utility piece to make some plays. The Chariot's really good. Like, it's going to be kind of hard. I think I've used it now for a while, so it's going to be kind of hard not having it, but it's okay. I got more models on my list now, so I think it'll work out good. So I'm taking Bard, Gandalf, Bilbo, and Hilda Bianco are my four heroes. And Bard, Bilbo, and Gandalf's warbands are maxed out, so that's why I took Hilda. She was the only way I could fit in the points. So let's go to Jason.
Oh, going to me. What's up, guys? Long time no see. So, like Dan said, 750 points. I toyed with the idea of a couple different armies, and I decided to be that guy. And I'm doing Rangers of Ithilien with the new nerf, which, honestly, looking at it, the only thing it really did to hurt me was at above 700 points, I normally start taking a captain for a couple points of might and march ability, so I'm losing that, but I still have 45 models, and honestly taking Frodo, Sam, and Golem gives me more might than the captain would, so I've got some chances, just some heroic shots and some heroic accuracy, so G-Dub's nerf's probably going to end up working in my favor. But yeah, I've got all the named characters. Faramir, I did put him on a horse because just to have that mobility and in combat capability to maybe get a couple knockdowns and traps, plus the extra attack on the charge against infantry. Damrod, Madril, Ainborn, and Bob Long, and then just everybody else is rangers. So a lot of bow shots, strength 2. There's going to be some high defense things there because I know a couple people are coming. We'll see how it goes. So, yep. Joey boy.
Hey guys, so I'm playing Isengard. Funny enough, Isengard's like the third army I started like 7 or 8 years ago, like ever. And I've only taken him to one event, and I didn't take Saruman to that event. So I'm taking my Isengard. I got Saruman, Grima, Lartz, Rasku, and I have what's his name, Gorolf. So I went very hero heavy. I only have 32 models, I think, compared to you all. I mean, 40 something. But then I have, I have 4 ferals, I have 8 crossbows. So I got a lot of utility in my shooting and my ability to use magic. And then of course Grima is going to be Grima. And then I got a handful of Uruk-hai warriors of shield and pike. So that's
it did really good in our practice game too.
Yeah. It's I think in this new edition with Saruman. So like I've played Isengard now without Saruman and with Saruman. I think you could do good either way, but I think Saruman in an event where you don't know like what's going to be there, he just adds some good utility options to your list.
Yeah, especially at 700 and above.
Yep. Plus the Palantir.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah,
that's my list.
Well, we're heading up there now, guys. We'll be up there probably like at, I don't know, an hour and 20 minutes or so.
Yeah.
So stay tuned. We'll be back with maybe a display of boards.
Hey there, Middle Earth Strategy Battle Gamers. So we're going to finish our journey vlog with a video after the fact. So basically, our camera died, and honestly, all three of us kind of forgot to film during the event. So we
We
were
were
all
very busy.
yeah, we were in the moment. So apologies for that. We are going to talk about all three of our games now, though, in this video. So, or in this segment. So, I guess I'd go and start. Sound good, everyone?
Yeah, take it away.
All right. So basically, first round was domination, right? It was domination. Yep. Yeah, it was domination. I was playing my Isengard. My list had Saruman, Grima, Brasku, Lurtz, and Gorolf. So it was a very hero-heavy list. I think I had 12 might. No, sorry, 15 might. No, wait. Yeah, 12 might. It said 12 might, 33 models. So it was kind of an elite army. It was 750 points. And my logic in taking that list was, I like Saruman a lot, and he did really good for me in this tournament. I'll kind of go into that later. But I like all the named Isengard heroes because, like, for instance, Lurtz. He helps me in a Maelstrom scenario. Gorolf is just a good tanky guy that can go heroic defense against other heroes. Rasku, great archer. He can outshoot most other heroes in the game.
Except for Legolas.
Well, arguably, I've had him kill Legolas before.
Oh.
So anyway, that's why I took that list the way I did. So first round was domination. It was my Isengard versus the Return of the King Legendary Legion. Which, if you guys look at our Gondor Wars video we did about the Legendary Legions, I have it ranked pretty high. I think it's a very competitive list. It doesn't have a lot of the tools like other lists have, where you can do this and this, and this, but it does a few things very, very well.
Yeah, it's a high defense army with all terror. It can make low courage armies, especially evil, hard to defeat. So you were kind of behind the 8 ball being an evil army going
precisely. So we both rolled. I put my tokens down. He got priority in deploying tokens, but we both deployed them pretty much in a capture and control style. We didn't go very. We didn't try and put 3 tokens on one side and then hold that one side. So I knew right off the bat his list. He wanted to be in combat, so I kind of deployed back a little bit, which might have been a mistake. But I wanted to try and get a few kills with my crossbows. So I deploy back. He deploys around the line. Bam, he has 3 objectives right off the bat, basically, because he has both his and then the one that's in the dead center. And so first turn, I actually shoot and kill I think a Warrior of the Dead with my crossbows. Not bad. Next turn, he gets priority, which is perfect because of the way I was positioned on the board. I didn't want priority because I would have got to move. I had to move towards him, and then he could have charged me. So he moved forward. I was able to then move Saruman just a little bit and blast a Warrior of the Dead into Aragorn, killing the Warrior of the Dead and actually doing a wound to Aragorn. Aragorn had to burn he had to burn 2 points of fate. So it was a really good Sorcerer's Blast, and then it hindered Aragorn's movement for the next turn, so he can get that 6-inch charge on me. So it was a very good move, and that's why I like Saruman, because he can do things like that.
That's a good play right there.
Yeah, my Grima Wormtongue, I moved him literally. I deployed him with the King of the Dead's Warband, because the King of the Dead has 1 point of might, and it would have stopped him from doing any heroics. That was kind of my logic in that. And his Herald of the Dead was deployed on the other side of the board, basically, because I had a pretty long line because I had 4 warbands. He had 3, so I was able to deploy. He deployed his first one. I countered with my first one, then his second, then my second, then his third, then my third, and then I had 1 warband to reinforce wherever I needed to. So that's kind of how I did that. So I moved Grima. So instead of using Grima for his rule, I actually used him to get me VPs. I literally ran him back onto his objective. So I was now contesting his objective. And he was he was not very happy about that. So basically, we lock lines. Not a lot happens first turn of combat. None of my heroes do much. Next turn, I get my heroes positioned into heroic combats. And I called a heroic combat with every single one of my heroes. Now, here's one of the things that I needed to take my own advice from. Dun hero is very tough. Like each guy's defense 8. So you need 6s to wound him. It's not like a dwarf where you're strength 5, you need 5s. So you need 6s to straight up wound these guys. So I called heroic combats of all my heroes. Only 2 of them were able to move on. And that's because I had Saruman and Gorolf in the same fight together. So I was able to kill the guy. So instead of doing so here's what I did then. Saruman was on a horse. So I literally ran Saruman back on his side of the board, taking his other objective. And then I moved Gorolf to the center of his shield wall. So, next turn, he charges Aragorn into a feral. He had priority. So I then was able. He didn't have enough models to charge everyone because I had killed enough guys so now where he had to try and tie up 2 Uruk-hai here with a guy, Uruk-hai here, and he couldn't reach my heroes because he called the heroic. I think I used the Palantir, so he had to call a heroic move. Then I trapped Aragorn with Vrasku, Gorolf, 2 ferals, a couple pikes. I had dice on top of dice stacked up against Aragorn. And I was, I'm going to go and cast Transfix on him because that way, if he wins the fight, he won't be able to strike blows on me. At the very least. I didn't channel it, and in part I was trying to save my might, and the other part is I didn't call it in the priority phase, and I wanted to play the rules as written, and because whenever I'm versing someone new, I'm not gonna be like, hey, can I go back and channel that? It's just kind of weird. So I didn't channel it, but I ended up casting it on a 6 because of his rule, where I can reroll. I rolled like a 5 or a 4. I used 2 dice, rerolled one of them, bam, to a 6. He tried to resist with all 3 of his will. He rolled like a 1, 2, 3, didn't resist it. But here's the interesting part I did not realize. Once you're transfixed, you can no longer call a heroic action. See, I actually didn't know that. For some reason, I forgot about that. So
We all had forgotten about that too because you brought it up after the game, and I was like, "Oh yeah, you're right." We don't play with Magic enough to realize and remember
exactly. I don't remember if that was a thing in the last edition. And also because we were talking, like whenever I use Saruman, I tend to use his other offensive spells like Sorcerer's Blast or Command.
Flame Burst.
Flame Burst. So I struck up with Gorolf, got the higher fight than Aragorn, won the fight, killed Aragorn, then killed his banner. So things were looking really good for me. I was like, oh, I just killed his leader. There's a VP, because there's only one VP in Domination. So then the next turn happens. The next turn's where it gets saucy. The next turn, he killed a ton of my guys, because he's attacking the King of the Dead's warband, killed Lurtz, and Lurtz's entire warband of like 7 models in like 1 turn, basically.
Dang.
I lost the fight, he killed the guy, lost the fight, he killed the guy. The King of the Dead one-shotted Lurtz because, he has to do 1 wound and they automatically die. I failed my fate. So he won the flank with Lurtz and was starting to send guys back towards the center and the other objective that I had. So it was getting pretty bleak. I was like, oh, this isn't good because I can't kill him fast enough to go tie up those guys. And that's where that Dun Harrow list comes into play. It's really tough to kill them, even with like strength 5 Uruk-hai heroes, which is just something I'm not very used to because normally they can do the job. So I was okay. So he had more models than me on the center objective. Saruman and Greenville were still. Saruman was holding one of his objectives. Greenville was contesting one of his objectives, and now he had some dead guys contesting my objective. and then the King of the Dead was holding one. So basically, the roles had swapped. He was holding. He was contesting two on my side. I was contesting the center, contesting one on his side, and then Siren Man was holding one on his side. So I was like, okay, so what can I do to ensure that I can get one of these objectives? And I was trying to think magic wise. I would have to move Siren Man way off his objective to cast over to where Greenville was, just because of the placement. Or I can move him up 5 inches, or it was like 5 or 6 inches, cast Flame Blast on one of his warriors in the center, and then move back and still hold his objective. So that's what I did. I moved up a few inches, casted Flame Blast on one of his Warriors of the Dead, cast it successfully with his reoccurring, killed the guy, moved back on the objective. And I did that 3 times. With his recurring will, mind you. So basically, we're in the latter parts of the game. We're both broken. I didn't have to start actually rolling for my courage checks due to my army bonus till a little bit later. And he actually had quite a few guys flee. His courage 6 guys. He had like 3 guys flee. So
really, that's crazy.
Yeah, he had 2 guys that were around Greenville flee, and then he had 2. Sorry, he had 4 guys because then he had 2 in the center flee. So if those guys hadn't have fled, it might have been his win. So, just imagine the next turn happens. I'm broken now. I have to start making courage checks. Saruman's 12-inch steadfast in his special rule where he heroes benefit from his steadfast came into really big play in this game because Saruman's courage 7, and I used his hero of legend rule to automatically pass his first one. So everyone within 12 inches of him, which were holding 2 objectives, passed. So that was great. Grima fled, so then the objective Grima was contesting became his objective. So that's basically that's basically the end of the game. So Grima fled, so he was holding 2 objectives. The one that Grima was contesting the whole game, and then the one that he had the King of the Dead on. And then I managed to kill everyone around my back right objective. So if I'm facing the table, the back right one, and then the center one was contested. So we were both broken. I killed his leader. He had more points and objectives than me. So it ended up being a 6-6 VP tie. So I'm not going to lie. This is the second time I versed the Return of the King of Legendary Legion in a tournament, and it's absolutely an excellent army. If you're going to go to a tournament and you haven't played a lot, like you're kind of new to the game, I would recommend taking that army because your guys are durable, you got all kinds of good buffs. You wound things easily. So, and this guy was a relatively new player. My Isengard's nothing to laugh at. He did a good job. I'm not going to take it away from him.
Yeah, that's one of those armies like we've talked about, like you said in the at the beginning, where you can pick it up pretty easily, and because of the fact that units are so expensive, it can actually run pretty cheap for you to get playing with it, and you can learn it real fast, and it does pretty darn good. There are a few things that can counter it pretty well, but for the most part, if you've got a low courage army or something that doesn't have anything to counter terror like bodyguard or command, you're gonna have some struggles. So
Dan, you got any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I've versed that army multiple times now in tournaments, and solid list. When I versed it, I really don't see besides having a low model count, it's really durable. Aragorn's solid.
unless he gets transfixed, apparently.
Yeah, which I versed that army this tournament, so you will see how that I versed it third round of this tournament, so you guys will see how my game goes later on.
Hey, I got my drivers over from my guys, by the way. I had to get new drivers. So, yeah, so that was my
volume for Joe now.
good. That was my first game. He was it's like I play tested the Returns King Legendary Legion a few times, and I like it, but I don't like it at the same time. But my Isengard did a good job on the first game, so I'm gonna go and move on into the second game then.
Go
Go
for it.
ahead.
Okay, so second game was to the death, which is probably, it used to be my favorite scenario just because it's so basic. Like you just have to not worry about breaking, protecting a banner, and killing your opponent's leader. So it's like you can easily make it like a path to victory in that scenario.
Mhm.
So I ended up versing David, who he was playing the Grand Army of the South Legendary Legion. He had the Royal Mumok with all the scary crap that it has on it. He had he had Suladon. I think he had 6 or 7 Serpent Riders.
I
He had a pretty good chunk of them.
think he had 8.
Yeah, 8 sounds about right.
Maybe it was 7. I can't
And
remember exactly how many.
and then he had a few Haradrim warriors.
Yeah.
So he had 23 models on his list. I versed him in our tournament we had prior.
He had 26. 26.
26, yeah.
Yeah,
I
because you
versed
need to
him.
kill
I needed to kill
14 to
13.
break him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I versed him in our last event, which was a small local one that Jason held. And he demolished my Hunter Orcs, my Azog's Hunters, in their first event I took him out at. And I was actually hoping to rematch him because I was like, because I wanted to verse him with an army that I was familiar with and had a lot of tools with, you know? So I was very happy to rematch him. I was a little bit worried about the scenario I was versing him in because a scenario like domination, I can easily maneuver models around and take his objectives or whatever. But so we're playing a scenario that's pretty good for his list, a scenario based on killing models. Not only that, but he has a built-in banner with Suladon, who counts as a banner because it is a banner. Like he actually has a banner.
Yep.
His leader is on the Mumok, relatively hard to kill. And then breaking him, I think we did the math. I'd have to kill all the stuff he had on foot, and then kill a few guys in the Howdah to actually break him.
Yeah, I think it was everybody on foot plus 1 in the Howdah.
Yeah. So first turn, I deploy back. I was like, you know what? So it's 12-inch deployment. I deployed Grima and the Suladon's warband. So I asked him, I was like, hey, so can I put Grima in the Howdah? And he said yes, but the Howdah was full with the 12 models it can hold. And I said, okay, so I'll put him in with Suladon. I figured Suladon would be a good pick. Yeah, either of those heroes would be a good pick for Grima. But it ended up Grima was a really good pick for Suladon. So I deploy back. I deploy Saruman, Lurtz in a corner. I deploy Brasku and a bunch of crossbows up on this kind of hill. Then I deploy Gorolf's warband over to the left behind some huts. It was on a Rohan board. And I was okay, so here was my goal. Call heroic accuracies with Brasku and try and kill his guy driving the Howdah. That was like my first plan of action, I guess, to put it that way. So he marches up. He was easily 2 or 3 turns away with the Mumok because of the way I deployed. He called a march, marched up. Marched up. I moved Grima up. I sorcerer's blasted. No, that was next turn. No, it was this turn. I sorcerer's blasted a Serpent Rider into another Serpent Rider because he had them staggered really well to defend Suladon. Like in terms of I couldn't blast one. I wasn't in range to blast the guy directly in front of Suladon. And then the guys in the outer were protecting Suladon from getting knocked prone, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
So I blasted a Serpent Guard into another Serpent Guard, or Serpent Rider, and killed one of them. The other one I didn't kill, fortunately. So that was basically the movement. He marched up. I did a Sorcerer's Blast. Nothing fancy. I had Grima literally right next to Suladon, too. So then I call Heroic Accuracy of Rescue. I'm like, you know what? I gotta kill this guy. I'm willing to dump both points of might to do 2 wounds to him. You know what I'm saying? I was ready to do it. Roll a hit. Both of Rescue shots miss. But my
Isn't that
two,
typical?
but my 2 regular crossbows that were with him hit. I was like, oh, dang it! So both my crossbows make their in the way rolls, and then both my crossbows wound his war leader. He passed both points of fate. So next turn he calls a march again. I use the Palantir because Suladon now is within charge range of Saruman. So I try and transfix Suladon this time. He throws 3 dice and resist it. On a 6, he rolled a 6 to resist, so he got a will point back. But I was like, oh, this okay. So I was actually happy of this result because I'm making him burn his resources, like relatively early. So I moved back a little bit. I didn't have enough movement. We were basically fighting an alleyway. I didn't have enough movement to get my heroes positioned. So I basically run Saruman back and then put my shield wall where he was standing. So I'm like, he's gonna be able to charge me, but you know, he's not gonna kill a whole lot of guys. So he marches up to Mumok. Not a lot happens, but Mumok does nothing this turn. He charges all of his Serpent Riders in, plus Suladon. I was expecting a few casualties. I was expecting Suladon to kill some guys, you know, maybe hero combat. He was able to tie up a guy in the Grima, so I could not move to try and make Suladon not be able to, or, you know, the 2 will make Suladon spend 2 points of might for anything. So he has a really good turn of a cap charge. He won every single fight and killed basically everyone that he fought. He called a heroic combat with Suladon, killed the 2 guys, then rolled into my banner. So basically, I had to move my pike back when I was making in the way with the pike. I had to move the pike back to protect my banner, or I had to move my pike back to protect Saruman. So he could have charged Saruman if I moved him to protect my banner. If I moved him to protect Saruman or protect my banner, he could have charged Saruman just because of the way it was set up. So I was like, okay, he's gonna get more VPs for killing Saruman because Saruman doesn't have strike. He can have a good turn. I can fail all 3 of my fate. So I unfortunately it was a miscalculation. He killed my banner, which cost me 2 VPs. And then killed the pike. So he had a really good turn with his cap charge. So the next turn comes up. Now he was able to move his Mumok. Basically, the next turn, the Mumok was going to be able to charge. He's going to be able to run through that alleyway. So his priority went up. I was able to set up some really good stuff with alerts and some ferals that I had in the back rank to do some like really nifty heroic combats. So I do one more shot. I use my last point of might with Rascu to do a heroic accuracy, and I was able to do one more wound to his. Or sorry, I was actually he has 3 wounds. I had him down to 1 wound, but I think I wounded him again. I either wounded him again or 2 more times in this shot phase. So I got his war leader down to no might because he had to spend all of his might for heroic marches. He had no fate. So I was okay. So I was thinking in my head, I need to have one more shoot turn and actually kill this guy. Now, unfortunately, at this point, the Mumoks rear end was to my crossbows, so I couldn't see him. So we do the combat phase. He's at a might. Grima is literally right there, so any might, any heroics he's gonna call. I don't remember. I don't think he had any might left at this point. I had a few. So we had the fight phase. It was a really good fight phase for me this time. I won the fight, killed the guy. I did a heroic combat alerts and wrapped into Suladon. Won the fight against Suladon, killed his horse, and wounded Suladon twice. So Suladon was now to one wound. Okay, so the turns up. Here's the layout of the board. Because I had Gorolf on the far left part of the board, he's now moving towards this fight in this alleyway on the literally the opposite side of the board. Saruman lurts in this alleyway with Mumok and with Suladon, and just a few guys left. He didn't have many guys left on the ground. And then Brasku and a few crossbows are still on this hill. So literally this turn, he had priority the turn prior. So literally this turn could have made the game for me. If I had won this priority, I do think I would have won the game. Because the turn prior, I transfixed his Mumok war leader. He was able to pass because he rolled all 3 will, and he has the Sigils of Defiance, which gives him resistant to magic. He rolled the 6 with the resistant to magic dice to resist it, so he had no will left in his pool.
He'd still be able to throw 1, but if you can get enough dice in there.
Exactly. I was confident, unless he just would roll a 6. But I was confident I could have transfixed him again, which would have been excellent.
Could really use that Palantir, right? Right?
Yeah, and that's what I was saying, but I needed to use that turn to prevent Starman from getting charged.
Right. I think using it to giving up the banner in that situation as opposed to giving up Saruman was probably a better trade-off. I mean, a banner's 2 VPs, Saruman's 3 VPs, but the plays that you can make with Saruman are so much better. I mean, look where you're at.
Precisely.
If you can get this priority, I mean, then you could potentially shut down the Moonmock and go for the win from the sound of it.
Yeah. So basically, all this hype, literally, we both agreed before we rolled. I was like, look, I win this priority, I win the game. You win this priority, you win the game. And in my mind, the odds were in my favor because he had priority last turn.
Unless you throw 1.
So we both rolled. He rolled a 4, which is good. I was like, oh. And I'm out of might now on this part of the board. The only guy that has might left is Gorolf, who's like 2 turns away. I was like, 4, I could beat that. I rolled 3. I was like, dang it. No, I was literally like, I felt so robbed. I was like, I literally played it as good as I could. So of course he won priority. He ran over all the Urukai, killed Saruman. He did everything basically. So I was like, okay. And then the next turn,
I might have missed it, Joe. How many wounds did Saruman have left at that point?
Okay. Saruman had all of his wounds and fate. He ran me over, but now I was in fighting with the Mumok with just Saruman.
So you ran into him, but
with just Saruman.
So he's got 4 dice, and you've got 1 dice, and you're both fight 5. He's probably gonna win.
Yeah, and I think he did. I don't remember the war leader with that legendary legion. He can call heroic.
Oh yeah, because he's fighting your leader, so he's gonna be above you. Yep, he gets.
Yeah, so at this point, I was like, dang, okay, well, there's the game. But I still had a glimmer of hope. If I was able to do 1 more wound to Suladon, 1 more wound to his war master, or his war leader, and I had to kill 2 more guys, and those 2 guys could have been the models to kill, I could still tie it, right? VP-wise. The reason why is Suladon had the banner.
Right, because you would rob him of the banner.
Exactly.
So you would get the VPs there, which is good.
But there was almost no way I can do it unless I got Gorolf over there to do it. My crossbows can still kill the war leader. Um,
And you said Goroff was too far away.
Grolf was like 2 turns away. So what I did is I was 2 miles away from actually having to make my courage checks at this point. So I positioned Gorolf, his warband of guys, outside the alleyway. So I was like, he's gonna have to come to me because of I don't remember why, but he had to come to me. And I was like, at this point, I can. Oh, it's good. My crossbows, dude. My crossbows were tearing them up.
Oh, there
Yeah.
you go.
He had so many shooting turns. He literally spent a lot of shots onto my crossbows. Did not kill a single one for like 4 turns.
That's
It was
crazy.
beautiful. So I was like, okay, my one hope. So I won priority. I rolled a 6 the next turn. The turn that it didn't matter as much. So I was like, okay,
Naturally.
here's my chance. I threw a Urukai, whatever. I charged the Mumok. My only hope to kill Suladon was with Green Wormtongue. Green Wormtongue was the last guy I had over there. So I charged Grima into Suladon. I was like, you know what? I could do this. So now this shot phase, he actually killed 3 of my crossbows. He went from killing none of them to killing 3 of them in 1 turn. So now I'm broken. I have to make courage checks. I was like, okay, that's fine. I'll be okay. Because I had Gorolf, who had, a steadfast and, point of will, 2 points of might. So of course Grima actually won the fight against Suladon. I rolled a 6 to win. He didn't roll a 6.
Wow.
But I didn't wound him. I rolled like a 2. I was like, I stabbed too. So the next turn, he killed the 3 guys with the shooting. So I had to make my steadfast. Grima fled naturally because he has, was it Harbinger of Evil or whatever, Ancient Evil, whatever it is around the Mumok.
Yeah.
So Grima fled. Goral fled. I rolled boxcars. So even if I spent my 2 points of my life left and my 1 point of will, I would have fled because he's only courage 4.
I thought boxcars were 6s.
Sorry, I meant deuces. I rolled deuces.
Oh, okay. So you roll some snake eyes there.
Yeah, I rolled snake eyes. And then like 3 other guys fled that were with Goral. So then he 25% of me. So that was the end of the game.
Oh man.
And that was a game that like it's like an example of so like so here's my thing about dice. I don't blame the dice per se. But in terms of like priorities and roll-offs, the dice absolutely matter.
I agree.
This was a prime example of literally being anyone's game at this point. I had to roll above a 4. I had to roll a 4 or above to win because he had a 4. I would have won the tie. So literally the game came down to 1 dice roll. And he even said that in the game, he's like, dude, I was like, yeah, it was a good game. I mean, I did what I could. I really enjoyed that game. I think if I was to verse him again, I have a few tactics I'll keep secret, but sorry, not a few tactics, a few lists that are secret that I would like to maybe rematch him with. But
All right, game off.
but that's basically that game. It came down to a dice roll to see who the victor was.
So let me ask you this: since you've played him in 2 games now,
Yeah.
this was To the Death, and what was the other one you played at? Wasn't it
Versed him in
capture? It was domination as well.
it was domination. Yep.
Yeah. So do you think that if you were to have been playing a different scenario, because I feel like To the Death, even with your army, you have a good counter to the Mumok with Saruman, but To the Death is going to be a tough scenario, especially if he can get a good straight shot at a good number of your troops and just run them over, uh, which is probably a really good tactic to use for a Mumok. Do you think the scenario kind of favored him more than yourself?
I would say yes, only because his paths to victory. So, in any scenario that were involving numbers, I would give the edge to myself because I had the numbers, the types,
Right,
definitely.
right, yeah.
But in this
And then
specific
you can
scenario,
too.
numbers don't really matter.
Right.
They
Little
do and
bit,
they don't. They do and they
yeah.
don't.
Well, and I
Um,
will say that he played on that board twice because he played on that. You were on that Rohan board. He played on that in the first round as well, and that is not an easy board for him to maneuver that Moomock around. So I
no,
definitely have to tip my hat to his ability to play the Moomock in those tight areas. Because yeah,
yeah,
you can turn it 180 degrees, but if you bump into terrain, you have to move the base off of it in order to continue to rotate. But if you can't rotate all the way, then you're kind of stuck in. So
yeah,
I
no.
will.
He played a really good game. I mean, so like I want to kind of give a little backstory. So I've gone to how many events in the last 3 years, and I've placed at how many tournaments? You know, like I'm not trying to pump my chest, but I'm saying that he went toe to toe with me the entire game, and that he's
Yeah.
relatively new to the hobby. So I think
Yeah.
going
I
forward,
will
he is going forward. He'll be a pretty big force to reckon with.
Yeah, we'll say that
Powerhouse.
we in the Carolinas have a great guy in David. I'm looking forward to seeing what he can do when he starts putting a few more of these tournaments under his belt. And he's looking to expand in armies too. So he's definitely going to looking at shifting tactics with a different army as well. So it's going to be interesting to see how well he does at this next event. So
Yeah, so that's
and he's one of the coolest guys as well.
oh yeah. So that's basically the second game. And then the third game I had versus Dan. Me and
Gee, don't
Dan.
say it like that.
Well, we versed how many times? I mean,
Feel the love.
honestly, we played so many practice games, and we've ended up versing in a lot of tournaments together too.
Well, I will give Chad a tip of the hat. He did because Chad was our TO. So tip of the hat to Chad for doing a great job TOing. He even offered to let you guys switch partners for that round, but you
No,
guys were fine playing it.
we were fine because that way other players that are new can verse different people.
Right. So
Like, I'm fine versus Dan. In fact, I had to beat Dan because the army he took beat my list, similar list, last year. I think during a practice game. So it was kind of a grudge match. So we versed in Fog of War.
round 3 of Fog of War.
So Dan, you mind if I just kind of go over your list real quick? What
Yeah,
you
yeah,
had? Or
yeah.
you
Go
want to
ahead.
Okay.
Go ahead.
So he had Bard naturally, Gandalf again naturally, Bilbo naturally, and then he had Hilda,
Plus
and then he
kid.
had then the two daughters. So I was like, okay, I can't really kill Gandalf as easily. I can't really kill Bilbo once he puts the ring on, which he's going to right away. Then the girls, he can literally hide behind the house. And then Alfred. I guess I could have targeted Alfred. That might have been a good way to go, especially how things went. But I decided to target Hilda because she kind of needs to be in combat for her rule to work.
Right.
So I targeted Hilda. I opted. I was gonna make Grima Wormtongue the guy I was gonna protect because that's something I like to do. But because Dan did have Gandalf on his list, he can just make Sorcerer's Blast Grima
Yeah,
and
that's
kill him.
true. That's
And then
something people
there's
don't realize.
and then there's my VPs down the drain. So I decided to make Vraska my guy just because I can literally park Vraska behind like at the end of the board and just rain crossbow shots down on people. And then there was a swampy like terrain piece on the top left corner. And I decided to make that my terrain piece to capture. So in my head I was like, okay, Dan, who's he gonna target? And for some reason, because I wasn't really using my brain. Actually, no, I was. I thought you were gonna target Grima. Because as soon
Really?
as I, yeah, as soon as I deployed Grima with Gandalf. I was like, oh crap! I just gave Dan his VPs to kill Grima.
Oh, that's a good point. I didn't think of that as an option. I don't use Gandalf enough to come up with creative plays like that.
So
Well, now you have that experience for next time.
anyway, so we start playing. We move. I think I kind of play KG with Saruman. I moved Gorolf up, and he moves Hilda up. Hilda was like impeded by one guy, and I moved Gorolf up. I moved all my Erkine stuff up, but I kind of moved Gorolf up towards the center of the board by himself for some reason. And so anyway, I shoot my crossbows down into. I just had a brain fart, Hilda, and like kill her in one turn. I didn't have to burn might. I just shot like 3 crossbows and rescue at her and killed her.
Oh, that must be nice.
Yeah, and I was like, well, he might not know that's who I was targeting. Because I didn't have to burn any might. I didn't say, ooh, because it was like a kind of a freak accident. I was actually thinking about not even shooting all my crossbows at her that turn, but I did. And then not much happened after that. So then the next turn, I get priority. I move Gorolf and some Urukai up. I move Grima over to the swamp, the little objective that I'm supposed to take, the training piece. And I move Saruman and Lurtz up on like the left part of the board if I'm facing it. So we lock lines. He charges Bard and like an entire army of guys on the Gorolf.
Oh, I wonder who he's going for.
Like literally traps him. And I was like, oh.
That's how it's going to be.
So he heroic combats with Bard because he has that free heroic combat with the girls. Killed Gorolf. Literally took out an entire warband worth of my guys. I was like, holy crap. Like literally, I was like, how do I recover from this? It was like he literally they went full like wrathful fisherman on me and killed everything. So on the opposite flank, Starman and Lurtz were carving up his guys. In one turn, Starman killed 5 guys, which is hard to believe. I Sorcerer's Blasted one, I Sorcerer's Blasted one into another one, killed both those guys. Then charged a guy, heroic combat into 2 more guys, he killed them. So it was like, Starman went like full combat wizard that turn.
What is he, Gandalf the White now all of a sudden?
Pretty much. I will say this, to anyone who wants to playtest Saruman, I recommend it. The fact that he casts stuff on really low numbers and he gets to reroll a dice to cast and resist, he's phenomenal.
Yes, I agree.
That came into play a lot in this tournament. In fact, after using him, I don't know if I would not take him to another event. If I was to play Isengard, if I was to take Isengard to Articon tomorrow, I'd probably bring Saruman with me.
Yeah, I agree.
So basically, me and Dan both like literally broke each other in the same turn. So we didn't end the game. The game did not end. We didn't roll for it to end. And I was like, well, I sucks.
Well, we did roll for it to end, but we got 3.
We rolled 3. So the next turn, I was like, I literally got priority. And I saw Alfred sitting there, and I had Grima Wormtongue in charge range of him. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to charge Alfred and kill him with Grima. And it's going to be like a battle of the slime balls. So I charge him in. I give up my -2 for heroic movements, but all of his heroes were far away from Alfred or from Grima at this point, because I had him sitting on my terrain piece, or I had him like sitting in between 2 terrain pieces, but one of them was mine. Instead, I spent like 10 Urukai on the one that's mine. He hero combated with Gandalf the turn prior off of 2 crossbow Urukai and rolled onto his terrain piece. I did not mention that. So the next turn plays out. And none of the fights really matter at this point because just where our heroes are positioned, and basically it was like a seesaw. His weight, his point heavy side won big time and like landslided it into my side of the table, and then my point heavy side cleaned up his side really easily. So it was kind of one of those games. But the only fight that mattered that turn was Grima and Alfred. And I was like, you know what? Grima's not armed. What's he gonna do? So I opted to feint with Grima. And I didn't realize Grima was fight 2. I thought he was fight 3 for some
So you
reason.
stabbed.
I stabbed. He won the fight. Alfred won the fight and killed Grima.
Even with being
And it-
unarmed. Even with being
He rolled a
unarmed.
6. He rolled a 6.
So you got a 5. What'd you roll, Joe?
I rolled like a 1.
So you were as low as you could possibly be.
Yeah, and so then after that he rolled a 2 and the game ended. So, but it was a fun game. It's like one of those games where like where like both you and your opponent, like that's the thing about Fog of War I've noticed, because you pick your own objectives. So getting a path to victory can be easy if you pick the right objectives. And because of his deployment and my deployment, I put a lot of my points onto the side that would be like an easy path to victory for me. So like Saruman, Lurtz, 2 of my best heroes, on the side of the train piece, and then where his Hilda was. So I don't know. It was a weird game because it ended really fast too. Like literally, he had one turn where I'm not even joking. He killed Gorolf and Gorolf's entire warband in like one turn. And then and then the next turn I killed Saruman killed 5 guys, which never happens for me. Lurtz literally charged and killed like 3 guys. So I like broke him the next turn. So yeah, it was just crazy.
That's what happens when you can bring a lot of might into bear into one area, you know?
Yep. And
Or a lot of models and points. Just a lot of points in general.
And unlike like the game against David, my strength 4 was a pretty big factor on his defense 4. I needed to win him on 4s. Against Dan, my strength 5 heroes needing 4s to win his fisherman was a pretty big deal. So, but that's basically that game. We ended up being like what, a 10-10 tie. So it was a 10-10 tie. We got all the objectives we can get without.
Yep.
Yeah, no, it was 10-10. Yeah, 10-10 tie.
You guys
So
are both broken.
yeah, we're both broken. We both killed each other's heroes, and we both were protecting the guys we wanted to protect, and then we both had our terrain pieces. So
Who are you trying to protect, Dan?
Gandalf.
Naturally.
yeah,
Gandalf,
Eh.
and then I actually later on I slingshot a Gandalf onto my terrain piece that I wanted to get, so that if anybody came close to me, I could just sorcerer's blast away, command him away. Prims uses magic to defend the terrain piece.
That's pretty smart.
and Gandalf killed because Dan Hurok combated Gandalf off of 2 crossbow Urukai. And one thing I always forget about Gandalf is he has Glandring, so he's strength 5, and he was killing my crossbows on strength on 4s. I was like,
It's
damn.
an weapon too. Don't forget.
Yeah, so it was a good game. So at the end of the tournament, I had 2 ties and 1 loss, and it was a fun event. It was pretty small. I enjoyed playing Isengard. It's actually the first time I played Isengard with Saruman ever in a tournament, and I've been playing them since 2014. So, yeah, I had fun.
Nice.
Let me go ahead and go real fast because I think Jason has a little more to cover in his
Yeah,
segment.
Jason definitely does.
I'll make mine a little bit more fast. So
Why you make it sound like that?
What do you mean? Oh,
I
because
got
no, because we well,
I got three. Well, I got 3 games to go through. You only got
yeah,
two now. Yeah,
yeah.
I got you.
So first game I versed we played Domination. And I versed John Stokes, who's playing his lovely Corsairs. And my main goal this tournament was to drop the chariot, take Gandalf, get some more models, have some magic elements into my list, and I was like, yeah, I'll probably have the most models in the tournament, which is positive, especially in Domination.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, I got matched up against John, who actually had the most models in the tournament. Who's had 47, and I had 46.
I think he had 46. You had 45.
Well,
No,
anyway,
no,
yeah,
no.
I
You
had
had 46.
46. He had
Yeah,
47.
I
Yeah.
had 45. My bad. I had 45.
So I was like, oh, okay, well that's great. So there goes my instant victory and domination that I would normally have. So turn one, we deployed. I deployed a triangle. My objective was in a triangle, so I had one on the left side of my board edge behind a wall, behind some ruins, and I had one kind of in the open, but I had a triangle, so I can try to get. I wanted to try to get all three, right? And I wanted to get my two objectives and then the center objective. And I was like, okay, well, there's a choke point here, and I do have Bard. Even though he has Arbalesters, he had nine crossbows. I think I had 12 bow shots altogether, and then Bard, so 13. And then I knew I had some magic, so I was like, I'm gonna hang back and see what he does. So I deployed a little bit back, but hindsight should have deployed on the front. Actually, no, I think I did the right move. I'll explain that later. So he deploys a huge cavalry unit. Like, I think he had 12. I think he had like almost a full, maybe eight.
He had 9
horses.
Uladin.
Yeah, on my left flank. And I was like, oh, okay, well that's not good. Kind of one of Lake Town's big weaknesses, or Survivors of Lake Town, is the only cav models they can have are the heroes. So that's not good. So I knew that he was going to send in that element into my back objective. So I decided to pretty much permanently hold back just to save what I have. And then I was going to send out small cells of units to contest all the objectives he had. So first turn rolls around, I cast Blinding Light with Gandalf to protect my archers and Bard and the kids and everybody from the Arbalesters, and I roll a 1. So I mited it up because I didn't want to take any big hits. He was kind of surprised I mited it. I think it was a good call because he had a lot of targets he could have been shooting at with his Arbalesters. So I did use a point on Gandalf there. Called a Blinding Light. I believe I killed one guy in shooting and he didn't. And I was okay, well that's good. So now it's an even playing field. So the next turn rolls around, and I said, okay, well let me try shooting him again, and let me reposition some archers so I can start shooting at his cavalry that's coming up on that flank. He also had Delimere, the guy with the bombs. I think it's Delimere. He had Delimere in the ruins right there as well. So he had his cav element right there, and Delimere with like a bunch of reavers right there where he could. He was within at least easily a turn to charge my guys. So I was okay. Well, this kind of sucks. So called Blinding Light again. I think we had a fairly even trade again. Not much happened in terms of shooting. So here's where it gets interesting. Third turn, I call a heroic. Actually, no, I won priority. I won priority 99% of the time. He won one priority. It was at the end of the game.
Yeah, I remember him talking about that.
So I think everybody's been in that boat before. It's really frustrating. But he played like a champ, and so I won priority. And he put is it Celadon right there in the back of being protected by his cavalry guys. So I Sorcerer's Blasted a guy into Celadon and knocked him off his mount, which helped. And pretty much embraced myself. I knew that I couldn't move. I didn't want to move off my objective, so I pretty much embraced myself for that cavalry charge. And I did move Bard into position to also countercharge next turn, because nobody was in, none of his heroes were in charge range, but all of his cavalry was. So I figured if he sent all of his cavalry in first, I could easily wipe them out with heroic combats with Bard and Bilbo and Gandalf. They're all three were there. First turn he did kill somebody. He did kill Hilda with crossbows. She actually was outside of the blinding light, so she was a pretty easy target for him. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna start sending some cells of guys out. So I'm gonna hold this center wall. Okay, I'm gonna have this center wall to keep him away from my, I guess, Bard and some, like, probably his warband guys, and then Gandalf and Bilbo. And then I'm gonna send out about 2 warbands to try to grab his 2 objectives and at least contest the center objective. So what happens is he does charge over this cavalry, and I pretty much wipe out all of his cavalry. Delimere is sitting right there in a stone ruined building. Keyword stone ruined building. And I Sorcerer's Blasted him, did a wound to him. No, sorry, I didn't do a wound to him this time. I Sorcerer's Blasted him. What I should have done, guys, was it Falling Stones?
Collapse rock.
Collapse rocks, yeah, the spell Collapse rocks.
Yeah, I think.
And it does a lot more damage, and it was really actually an opportune time to do it. It was in a stone structure, a ruined structure, and that would have been a really nice wound. But it's just one of those spells that nobody uses as much, so I didn't think of it as an option. So I pretty much wipe out his calf. He does have a couple guys in range, and I'm pretty much trying to push him off the objective. He has a boatload of reavers with his bosun sitting back there. His shooting really, honestly, didn't do much that game. He tried pop shotting a couple guys here and there. He might have gotten a couple, but it was not as detrimental as it could have been. And I'm pretty much a turn away from getting to his back objective, where he has was it Dagmar, and I was also about a turn or 2 away from the center objective. I didn't want to put all my eggs in one basket because I knew I was going to be outnumbered in the center objective fight. I had more numbers in the left flank, but I knew that I was going to be outnumbered in the center objective because my goal was just to contest it. So I was kind of trying to be patient and bide my time. So the next turn rolls around. I win priority. He is kind of doesn't have as much might in this list, so he's being really reserved with his heroic moves, all of his heroic actions. And so I Sorcerer's Blast Delimere again and do a wound. I think he did a successful save with his fate. No, I actually might have gotten a wound on that. That might have been one of my VPs. I think I got a wound on him.
He's got a lot of fate.
Yeah, he does. He was like, it was kind of ridiculous. But
yeah, he's got 3.
Yeah, so he passed his fate. And pretty much we get in combat. His reavers start tearing through my lake town. So it's pretty much my heroes, like Bilbo doing work, Bard doing a lot of work, even Gandalf in combat doing some work. But my guys are fighting reavers who fight 4, and then with the bosun, he was failing courage and charging the closest guy, so he's wounding him on like ridiculous number. I think it was strength 5 or whatever their rule is. He was wounding my guys on 4s pretty much. So I also sent my detachment of troops to the side and got to his objective and actually encircled his group of guys. But I didn't realize that he had Dagmar in his army, and that there was a hero sitting there on that objective. So pretty much that's how the game goes. We're fighting in those 3 areas. Eventually, I do send in my center flank, my center force, I should say, not flank, my center force, and ultimately Dagmar was able to do enough damage to my force I sent to that.
Delgamar.
Yeah.
Delgamar, my bad. I was like, who is he talking about? My bad.
Yeah, no, you're good. I don't know. I don't play that. I don't play that army, and I haven't looked at the army enough to actually know their names. So I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing it, guys.
Oh, you're good.
But
It's kind of like,
yeah.
I think I know.
So pretty much, here's how the game ends. Is he has one objective. I have one objective. He is contesting with more models. His side objective that I was trying to get, the center objective, and then I am broken because of the FAQ. I was broken the last turn, and the turn you are broken, you are broken. So I was broken, and it was I believe a 6-3 victory. I had my objective, which was 2 points, and then I wounded his leader. So it's a really close game against Corsairs, who are, really competitive. Lake Town's really competitive too, or Survivors of Lake Town. So it was a good game. It was a solid game. Next game I had, I versed the Return of the King LL, Legendary Legion, and I versed him into the death. And right off the shoot, I'm at a disadvantage because he has a banner and I do not. So my goal was to try to kill Aragorn and kill the banner and hope that I roll enough 6s to break him. And so pretty much I deployed back. I'm trying to shoot him. He has no archery, so he's just moving forward. He used the terrain pretty well, and I did roll kind of trash on my archery. Strength 2 bows, and I was shooting on 4s, so not as accurate as like a 3-up shot value, but didn't do really good at the shooting. Even with bards, I rolled I think I moved with bard and rolled a 3 high, which I did might one of them, and then when I didn't get the next shot off, I was like, yeah, I'm not going to continue to waste my might. So he eventually moves Aragorn out into the open. Clear line of shot. He was kind of leading the charge, so to speak. This is turn 4, because pretty much we're just spending the rest of these turns moving and adjusting. And I was like, okay. So I turned a bard, didn't move, and shot all 3 shots in Aragorn. I spent all 6 of my might to do 3 wounds. Because I was like, if I could get Aragorn right now, he misses out on his banner bonus he gets with him. It's a leader kill. And then I have Bilbo, Hilda, and Gandalf to fall back on. I ended up doing 2 wounds. And then the next turn rolls around, I get priority. I Sorcerer's Blast a guy into Aragorn, so I knock him down, and then I charge. And we pretty much fight. He fights in the most optimal position for him because he's fighting me in a small little chokehold. So I can't use my numbers against him. And even if I wanted to, I was saying I'm not going to really attempt to charge his guys because I'm Courage 2 with his Harbinger of Evil, and pretty much I'm just going to line it up where we're fighting 2-on-2s the whole time. And I'm going to really rely on my heroes' high courage because Gandalf's Courage 7. I'm going to rely on Bilbo, Gandalf, and Bard to do the damage, and they did. They did do the damage. So we get into this position where I win priority roll off because that was actually a pretty even. We rolled pretty evenly for priority. I win the roll off, and I look at Aragorn. He's sticking out a little bit far, okay, but he can easily countercharge my guys. So I called the heroic with Bilbo. I got the heroic roll off. Charged Bilbo into Bard. Charged Bilbo into Aragorn. Charged Bard into Aragorn. And I immobilized the only guy who could have peeled Bilbo off. And then I kind of moved. I didn't charge those guys. I didn't want to risk it. I just moved my guys to where he couldn't get around them. And I ended up killing Aragorn in that situation. So,
Which board were you on?
I was on the golly man, I played on it twice. It was the same board I was on. Board 3. So the ruins. Yeah.
The Oscilia's Ruins type
Yeah.
board.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So in that subsequent combat phase, I did kill Aragorn. So I got the leader kill. Other than that, I couldn't wound his guys, and I had too many guys for him to break me. He did come pretty close to killing Bard, but I was able to with the King of the Dead. But I saved it with Fate and then moved Bard out of harm's way, so I couldn't take any wounds. And then sent in just my force of guys and pretty much swamped them. So that game ended. It was a tie. He had the banner, and I had the leader kill. So none of us were broken, and he did not kill my leader. Oh, I'm sorry. He wounded Bard, so he got a point for that. He wounded with a regular warrior.
Okay,
So
that's
it was
how you guys got
yeah,
3 tie.
yeah. So it was a 3-3 tie. He did the leader wound, and he had a banner. And I kind of like I get the I get the banner points, right? I mean, it's kind of the most annoying victory score condition because pretty much he automatically got those points at the beginning of the game as long as he just kept his guy in the back, which he did. And I'm not taking a banner because I have a banner buff, you know. So that was kind of like cringy because I actually used tactics to kill his Aragorn, and all he had to do to score his big points just sit his banner in the back. So, but it was a good game regardless. That Return of the King LL is really solid, and he was a good opponent. So, and then my third game versus Joe, which we already heard about. So let's go to Jason.
Yeah, so I think I covered it already for our little intro video. I took the new nerfed version of the Rangers of Ithilien Legendary Legion, and basically all I did was just take I took everything I normally did. So it's 750-point event. Usually at that range, I start adding a captain and a couple warriors with shields or spears and stuff like that in order to get some march and a couple extra points of might. So I dropped that and took the Frodo, Sam, and Gollum mandatory thing. And I thought it was going to be kind of like a detriment to me, but I will say it actually ended up being quite better because taking the captain, yeah, you can mount him up and you can mount him, you can give him a lance, you can give him a shield, so you get a little knockdown. I mean, the biggest weakness is he's fight 4, but you only get 2 points of might. Taking Sam, Frodo, and Gollum, you actually end up getting 5 points of might. Plus, now you have the ring. You got to be careful how you use it because of the fact that you have that 33% chance of rolling 1 or 2 and having him kind of go crazy and getting controlled by the opponent. So I don't instantly put the ring on. Like Dan can just go ahead and do it with his Bilbo for Survivors of Lake Town because it has a special role, has not awoken yet. But for me, I have to be a little more strategic with when I do it. But I had 45 models, like I mentioned earlier. Pretty much 2/3 of my army had spears. That way, I could just spear support wherever. So round 1 was capture and control, and I was on the Erebor table, and it was pretty cool. John had 3D printed a bunch of pillars, and then he had the entire table decked out with glitter to be gold, which was pretty nice looking. I actually liked it. Not as many There's some stuff out there for in the ways for line of sight, but for the most part, it's actually, in my opinion, a pretty open board, which works out for that army. So I was playing against the Riders of Théoden, Legendary Legion, and the guy had Théoden, naturally, Éomer, and Gambling with the Banner, which, if you, like Joe mentioned, if you've watched our Gondor at War Legendary Legion rankings, he and I both agree that that is not the most optimized way to play that list. So yeah, that's just my thought process. And then he had a whole bunch of Royal Guard with throwing spear. Had, I want to say, 24 models total, and I think of those 24, only about 5 or 6 of them were riders. So we deploy our tokens. We've got pretty kind of almost a capture and control look, just slanted. So we've got our central token, and then there's one 12 inches in the middle of a deployment zone, one straight along the line, one at about a 45-degree, 12 inches away, and one at about 30 degrees, 12 inches away. A little bit more than that, just because of the whole 12-inch thing. So there's kind of a triangle off to the right side of the board, one to the left, and one straight back. So I do exactly what you expect me to do. I deploy in a long line and see what he does. And he is a newer player, so I'm not gonna this is probably definitely a very good learning game for him. He went ahead and tried to face my archery line with his warrior, his mounted guys in a line. And unfortunately for him, what that ended up doing was causing me to have vast superior numbers advantage. I sat back and got 2 turns of shooting off. Wasn't super successful. I think he killed 5 guys, took about 3 others off their horses. So by the time he got to me, I had already started moving up on the flanks with 2 of my smaller warbands, because Damrod, Moblong, and Aenborn are all minor heroes with 6 guys. So I was moving about 5 to 6 guys plus a hero up the flanks to try and start pushing for the objective markers by turn 3. And that split his forces even more. So, long story short, we get into a lot of combats. I think I ended up wounding Théoden and breaking him and being unbroken, and ended up quartering him. And I controlled 4 of the objectives, and he had 1 guy on the back objective. So it was a 10-2 victory for me. 1 for breaking and 1 for wounding Théoden, which was actually crazy. I had to kill Éomer, and because of the fact he only had 3 heroes, he ran out of might real fast because he was trying to call heroic movements in order to counter me. And I was like, I don't really mind if you charge me, because yeah, you'll get your strength 5 or your strength 4 in your fight 5, but I'm gonna get like 5 or 6 guys countercharging you every time. So even if you go ahead and win, you'll kill 2, but in scenarios where you're not rolling a 6 with your fight 5 Royal Guard, I'm gonna win. So, and not only was I winning, I was killing him, because I could bring usually 6 or 7 guys to bear to his 1. I mean, that's just like Joe and I have talked about it before, and Joe, you can chime in. We both agree that using the banner is definitely not the best way to play that Legendary Legion.
Yeah, you guys can check out our Rohan. I think we've talked about it a couple of videos. Basically, the way I play that list is don't take Gambling with the Banner, because he's a pretty pricey points cost.
Yeah, very
Instead,
much.
I'll take Elfhelm. I'll take more heroes, and I'll take, I don't know. You guys go watch the video, but yes, I believe,
Yeah.
especially I didn't take him even when the banner was really, really good.
Yeah.
And
And now
I'm
terrible.
yeah,
It's not worth it.
and now I'm definitely not gonna take him. But
Yeah.
yeah, so
It,
but
it,
yeah,
and
I agree.
it really didn't help him either, too, because of the fact that he had Gambling out there by himself, with far away from both Théoden and Éomer, which is you kind of want the banner near your heroes. That way, they're getting that banner roll, especially Théoden, who's only got 2 attack base. But I mean, just to quick thought. If you think
Yeah.
about it,
Yeah, well,
fading. Go ahead, Joe. Sorry.
and again, specifically against Surelist, Gambling's big claim to fame is he can call heroic defense every turn
Yeah.
because he can have a might every turn.
Yeah.
But he can't call heroic defense in your shooting phase, which, in my opinion, is a good way for fighting Rohan.
Yeah. Well,
So
I didn't think too much about focusing my shots at the horses. I did actually remove a point of fate from Aomer because I shot at Aomer with about 4 or 5 bows and did a wound to his horse. But they have Horse Lord, which is why I wasn't really too worried about aiming at the heroes. I knew with the fact that I had the superior numbers, I mean, I almost outnumbered him 2-1. I figured if I could go ahead and make his army lag by shooting enough of them off of their horses, just the troops, it would make it much harder for him to get to me faster and give me more time to continue taking those troops off their horses. And that worked out really well because by the time we really got into combats, I mean, there were about 5 or 6 guys that he had on foot. And I'd actually taken Gambling off his horse at one point too, at the very end. And he did do that heroic defense, like Joe said. Um, but unfortunately, I was able to get like, I don't know, I think I had Madrill with support and like 3 other warriors, just the maximum amount of guys you can get on there. So we'll say 8, including supports, and then he was trapped. So you're talking 18 dice, just because again, Madrill has 2 attacks. So that's 7 plus 2 is not, 18 dice. Even with the heroic defense, I threw like 4 6s, and bye bye, there goes Gambling, unfortunately. But yeah, just for a lesson for guys who are thinking about playing the Legendary Legion or playing Rohan in general, Gambling with the banner is like 120 something points. You can take Elfhelm and Durnhelm, and they're like 10 points more expensive. And what you end up getting is a guy who has a throwing spear that hits on a 3-up that rerolls everything to hit, to wound, and in the ways. He's 3 might, 2 attacks base, 3 on the charge, and then Durnhelm has heroic strike and is 3 attacks. So you're adding another 3 attack hero plus another striker. So even if you're just playing with those 4 heroes, Aomer, Théoden, Durnhelm, Elfhelm, you've got 2 guys who are 3 attack base and 3 strikers now. So it just seems better to me to go that way. Plus, then you give yourself 12 points of might base. Then your death call, you got 16, so on and so forth. You can do the math out. Realize that the banner, especially with the new nerf, is just not worth taking anymore. So if you're looking for VPs, you might as well just take a Rider Rohan mounted with a banner. But yeah, I got a 10-2 victory there in the first round. So yeah. You guys have any last thoughts of them?
Yeah, I would just say that I agree with you guys on the Gambling and his banner. I guess it is like an unpopular opinion, but I think the placings always speak for themselves.
Yeah.
yeah, I think that the banner is so. I think that okay. So there's 2 things I want to cover. One, I think that I agree about Frodo, Sam, and Gollum actually adding a different dynamic to your list. So like you have to take them now, which I'm fine with, because if you look at other Legendary Legions, you have to take certain characters. Like for instance, if you play the Helm's Deep Legendary Legion, I think you have to have Théoden and Aragorn in it. Am I correct?
Yeah. Yeah.
And like, so I'm fine with that. Um, and I think they added good tool to your list as well. As regards to the Rohan, okay, so I've play tested the banner last edition. I play tested with the banner this edition. I play tested this without the banner last edition, and I play tested without the banner in this edition. And my place, so I've placed second and first with Rohan. In this edition, not using the banner. I took him with the banner, and he's a big juicy target for someone. Someone
Yeah.
like, yes, he has defense, but he's a big, juicy target. In fact, people will target him and Théoden, and yes, again, I'm fully aware he has heroic defense, but you know what? I've lost a lot of models who called heroic defense before because they roll 2 6s and kill him.
Yeah,
So,
it's crazy.
so I think that it sounds like you played it. It was a good scenario for you to
Yes.
start, and it
Yeah.
sounds like you played it exactly how you should have, and it sounds like he was trying to. So, like, we were actually talking about this after. He was trying to meet you head on the full length of your gun line,
Correct.
where like a more seasoned Rohan player would have probably put their cavalry formation almost in like a diamond shape and just gone straight into a flank and then
Yep.
spread out that way. That's how I would have approached it.
Yeah,
Uh,
I mean, you and I talked about it. That's kind of what if I had been playing against you, that's what I would have expected from you. Again, he was a newer player, so we kind of talked
yes.
about it afterwards, and he realized he's like, yeah, I probably should have done that as well. And I was like, yeah, because if you'd run right down the middle, my smallest warband was in the middle, and I was like, if you would run right down the middle there, you could have easily just overrun it and then split your forces and gotten me from the sides.
Did
So
I'm assuming he called death on you.
he did, but the turn he called death, um, he used a combat with Théoden and a strike with Éomer,
Yeah.
and I countered the strike with Faramir and won the roll off. We
Okay.
both struck up to 10. I won the roll off. By
So
that point, he had already spent a point of fate and might, so I ended up being able to kill Aylmer because of the fact that he burnt his resources too quickly and had too few of them.
yeah,
Another reason why I don't think the banner is useful. And Aylmer, or Faramir was able to get the last strike up and kill him.
that's
Yeah.
that's another reason why I really like taking a lot of smaller heroes in my riders with Théoden, just because you want that might. You need
Yeah,
those heroes, specifically in the Riders of Théoden. You need the heroes because death can be game changing.
yeah. Well, and it's funny because his heroic combat with Théoden, I had countercharged him with like I think he charged into Frodo or something, and I countercharged him with like Sam and a whole bunch of other guys. So I think he took out one or two Rangers with the knockdowns, but I had like 4 or 5 guys in base contact, so it
Oh,
basically it neutralized his
you
heroic
you didn't
combat.
have the ring up.
I didn't have the ring up yet, not yet.
Okay. Yeah, so that's kind of my thoughts. I think it sounded like, again, newer player, 100% understandable.
Yep.
Like even like in games now where we've all, like me, you, and Dan have played so many tournament games and practice games, we still make mistakes.
Oh yeah,
Um,
definitely.
you can make like 5 mistakes in a game, so understandable. I hope that he takes that game and learns from it. That's all I can
Yeah,
say.
he was a really cool guy, really fun
Yeah,
guy to play against.
yeah. I talked to him a little bit.
Yeah,
Um, so anyway, yeah. So I kudos. It's done like a job well done on that.
yeah. Thank you. So yeah, that was round one. So round two, I ended up playing against John because John and I were the two highest scorers for the first round. And then Joe, your tie ended up putting you against David, so you were in the top half of the field there. Um, but we played, like Dan said earlier, he was playing Corsairs, and I will say it's actually my Corsairs because they were the Corsair army that I had been playing, and I sold it to John because he wanted to try them out, and I've already played with them, won an event. Kind of fits my playing style, kind of doesn't. I like good armies more than evil armies. It's just who I am, I think. Um, so I sold it to him. So he's basically using my own models against me. But we played on this table one again, and it was to the death. And a scenario like that really, you know, um, favors me. But he did have a ability to maybe get in my face if he used his bosun to call a march. This is because he had Suladon, Delgamar, Dalamir, and a bosun. And the bosun was leading, I think, 7 Reavers, and then he had 9 Arbalesters spread about, and then Suladon with the 8 Serpent Guard. And he came down my right flank with the Serpent Guard, and he was trying to protect Suladon the whole way. So I focused really heavy on trying to shoot those guys, and it works well because usually when I'm shooting Strength 2 bows against Cav, it's usually like Defense 5, Defense 6 Cav, so I'm winning on 6s. But it was nice shooting these guys who were only Defense 4, because when I was rolling Horse or Rider, it was like, oh, I don't mind which one I hit because I'm wounding both of them on 5s. Long story short, for his cavalry work, I think he just kind of took too long to get down there. Um, by the time he finally was able to charge off, and I was able to kite a little bit, he got close to my right flank, and I went ahead and pulled 8 of my guys away. I didn't deploy my gun line so far spread out. I actually kind of kept it closer together. And so there was actually a pillar I used as natural terrain barrier and also a line break. And when he got within a turn of charging, I took all 6, or like I said, all 8 guys that could have been potentially charged the next turn and moved them so they couldn't shoot, but then he couldn't charge me the following turn either. He could either sit there and take another 2 turns of bow fire or move within range and get countercharged. And that's actually what ended up happening is he was able to get a charge off with 2 guys, because in that next turn I was able to shoot out 2 more guys. So by the time his cab got there, I think he had 2 mounted guys plus Suladon, and I was able to shoot Suladon off his horse as well, which really helped me a lot. But he hid his arbalest, not his arbalest, his reavers and his bosun for like the entire game, and was trying to get him down. But while he was doing that, he was kind of walking Delgamar and Dalamir behind a bunch of Black Numenorians and some other stuff. And I actually purposely went ahead and targeted the Black Numenorians. I figured, they're defense 6, so I'm winning them on 6s, but these guys are terror, and I'm only a defense 3 army, or I'm sorry, a courage 3 army. I don't really want to get too much into having to do crazy courage checks. So of the 6 Numenorians he had, I think I took out 3 of them, and he was close to broken by the time we finally got into combat. I mean, I played it exactly like you expect playing this army. I sat back and shot. The one thing I will say, I think I talked to him about it, but he disagreed. I think he had a better shot if he had tried to bring his army straight down the middle at me. There was a turn there where he could have put his defense 6 against shooting arbalesters in front with the uh, Black Numenorians as the second rank, and then put the Reavers and his heroes and his other warriors behind that, and then just come straight at me. And if he had done that, it would have taken 2, maybe 3 turns of shooting. But with 2 ranks of defense 6 guys, he would have had a better chance of getting to me without so many guys being shot out, and then could have pushed straight into the middle, and he would vastly have the fight value advantage against me. Not only with throwing weapons, but then the terror guys, like I said. So it was a tough game for John. He was like, "This sucks." I was like, "I'm sorry. I'm being that guy for this event, playing this army. I just want to see how it is with this new nerf." And I will say it works out really well. That was the second time I used Golem's Point of Might in the first game to call a heroic shoot to counter like 5 or 6 bow shots that the Rohan guy was using. This time I actually used it to call a heroic movement on like one of the last 2 turns, which was really critical in order for me to go ahead and pin him down and then get him quartered. So I think I was able to. We both had banners, so we both got 1 point for that. I think it was another 10 to 1. I think it was 10 to 1 victory because he didn't wound Faramir, he didn't break me, and he didn't. Yeah, so I broke him, was unbroken, was 5. I didn't touch his leader, so it must have been 6 to 1. I think it was 6 to 1 because I don't think I got to Dalamir. I might have. I can't remember, but it was. To the death's one of those weird scenarios. There's only so many ways you can get victory points, and it's hard to do. So
Yeah, that's why that's why I'm kind of salty about the whole banner thing, because you're right. You can only get points a certain way, and that's definitely the easiest one if you have a banner.
Well,
I have a banner too, and I definitely did very hard work to make sure it was protected.
Can Lake Town even take a banner? Like, can a Lake Town militia guy even take a banner?
I'm not sure. I don't think so.
Give me 1 second, I can tell you. But I don't think they can.
Oh,
And
either.
even if they can, why would you with Bard? I mean, the
No,
only reason to
don't.
take a banner is for that scenario.
Yeah, and we talked.
No, you can't.
Yeah, okay. We've talked about this, and there's only 2 scenarios, right, that require VPs for banners. That's one of them.
To the death, and I think it's Heirloom's Age is past.
Yeah. But
So,
yeah, I get it, but I also don't like it because I get it because it adds incentive to put a banner in your list, but I don't like it because I rarely. So I'm gonna say this: I rarely play shield wall armies, and I normally when I take them, I don't take a banner, which I think is why I don't like them because when I've taken them with a banner, they tend to perform better for me. Um, but like when I play my Rohan, I rarely take the banner. A banner in general, you know, hobbits can't even take a banner. So I don't know, just
I don't usually take one either when I'm playing fiefdoms, because I mean Immerhill is
Yeah,
kind of like
Emerald,
yeah,
Mark.
yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
So especially okay, that's kind of another thing is especially since they put so many heroes in the game now that have banner effects, and
Yeah.
you don't put them in your list. It's like I don't know, it just seems like too easy for VPs because I could literally.
I will say this: it's only 2 of the 18 scenarios,
I
so
mean, that's true, but they're
it
pretty popular scenarios
yeah.
regardless.
Well, Heirloom's Age is past. I don't think it's very popular.
No, no, I don't
only
think so
seen
either.
that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's not popular. You're right, but to death definitely is.
To the
I think
death
most.
has kind of been usurped by Lords of Battle because of the fact, like, I mean, look at the armies that Dan, me, and even John played. We played Horde armies at 750 points. To the death, or not? I'm sorry, not to the death. Lords of Battle is one of those ones where it's like, oh, you want to come with a horde? Okay, we're gonna throw Lords of Battle in there and just watch your like
Yeah.
150 Goblin Town army get 50 of them killed, and oh, now you've lost. So it's it's an interesting one. We'll put it that way. I don't have any qualms against it. I do understand where you guys are coming from. I mean, and like I said, I've been in that boat as well. As when I play fiefdoms, I don't take a banner. There's no point when I have a 24-inch diameter banner as long as I keep Immerhill alive and in a good position.
Yeah.
If that's the case and it's to the death, well, then part of my strategy is going into figuring out how to do some slingshots and stuff like that to go and get the banner. And if they hide him in the back, well, then that's fine. They hide him in the back. I'm going to make sure to maximize my killing ability so I can go ahead and break him and be unbroken and take a 5-2 victory and be happy with that. So, yeah, that's just my thought on a banner anyway.
No, I mean, I think I would definitely be taking a banner with Rivendell.
Oh, yeah, I think you definitely have to.
Yeah.
I'm debating. So I don't know. Well, this is for another video, another chat, but I'll tell you guys more about it later. What armies I'm
Alright.
taking. So anyway,
Uh,
your big game. So that was your round 2. So like the thing about Corsairs is you versed them twice at Dry Falls, right?
I played them against him once at Dry Falls.
Okay. See, like the thing is, Corsairs is actually an army that actually terrifies me. No matter what army I'm playing, even if I was playing my Riders of Thetan, I'd be scared of crossbows and throwing
Fine.
daggers. But
Yeah.
I don't know. It seems like you played it really well. I think that his list too was very solid. He had like a horde of infantry that are fight for, which is great. Of course, that's one reason why I think Corsairs are good. I think the term that's used with them is glass cannon. Like that's
Yes.
like their like the definition.
Yeah.
And then the fact that you can take Suladon and Serpent Riders, it's like you have the perfect glass cannon cav to go with your glass cannon infantry.
Yeah.
And it sounds like you're. So I've play tested. You guys can watch the Gondor War video that we did, Legendary Legion video, for more detail on this. I've versed his Rangers of Ithilien. It seems like every time I verse them, I'm playing Isengard. Um, and it's a list that scares me. I know it has weaknesses. But with Corsairs, it's like it's like the perfect army free diverse in that scenario because Corsairs bank on making you come to them. Like they're like the Arbalister. Normally, you can take a horde of Arbalisters. That's like a difference between Isengard and Corsairs. You can take a lot of crossbows.
Well, I will.
So
I will
they're
say I was kind of curious. Like I said, I've played the Corsairs, and Joe, you and I have practiced, and our practice game never went well. But I played them at Fayetteville and won all 3 events and won the event with Corsairs. So I know their strengths and weaknesses. I wouldn't say I'm an expert at them, but I have definitely learned their strengths and weaknesses. And I know a lot of people look at allying things in, like um,
on.
Suladon, but I don't think that's actually a smart thing to do. I think once you start getting into the 750 range, you'll actually maybe start looking at adding the Knight of Umbar for a good offensive weapon piece. Because if you start allying, and then you're going to start losing the ability to take more of those Arbalesters, like you just said. And yeah, he had 47 models, but 9 of them were from Suladon, the Serpent Horde, and he had no bows on those guys, so he could only take the 38 guys. Heroes don't count towards your point. So I mean, he could take 13, no, 12. Yeah, round up 13 Arbalesters, which he didn't even do. He only had 9 Arbalesters. I think if you're taking Corsairs, you're definitely maxing out your Arbalesters as well.
Well, okay, so the reason why I think that Suladon and the Cav work, you don't have. I think he might have maybe had too many points invested in Cav. If he did he have 12?
No, he had 9, including
Okay.
Suladon.
See, I would have taken like 5 because
Yeah,
so like because
I think
Corsairs can't
6 is a good area, good
yeah,
range.
Corsairs can't take Cav. They don't have Cav in their list, and they can't take a mounted hero. Suladon gives them both those, plus Suladon gives them a banner. That's where I like Suladon on that list. But
Yeah, because he counts as a banner.
it's kind of like a lot of other armies. Like when I played fiefdoms, I don't know. This is a bad example because I've heard people argue you should take a lot of mounted knights, but I don't know. There's certain armies like too many mounted models in that list. If you're gonna, it's like this is why I don't like shield wall armies because I either like to take all cav or a pretty big cav element.
Mhm.
And I think that it sounds like he probably had too many points invested in that cav element.
He did. In my opinion, it was maybe a little bit too much cav. It was also just not very good usage of his army. He tried to get he got the cavalry in there while the majority of his foot troops were still 2 turns away. Um,
Oh
like I
yeah,
said,
yeah.
he should have
Uh,
walked down the middle at me, and he started doing it. He realized it, but by that point, the damage had been done
Yeah,
by my shooting.
yeah, and I've like so like I can understand him doing that because when I versed your list, there is a panic phase. It's like, well, okay, there could be a turn where you don't kill a lot of stuff. You're like, okay,
Yeah,
I'm fine. And then there's a turn like I don't know, like the next turn where you like kill 5 or 6 guys, and then you're like, oh, well, and if you have that big point invested cav unit, you're gonna not want them to lose horses, and I can
yeah.
understand where that happened. I think he probably panicked. I don't know if he's ever reversed that list before.
He
So,
has. Yeah,
oh
he has.
yes,
Yeah, he
okay,
played it against it in Dry Falls. Not
okay.
against me, but against somebody else. Well, I will say this: even through those 2 games, I was usually getting a kill of some sort each turn, but it wasn't like I played Jujo that one turn and almost broke you in like one turn of shooting. Of course, that was also shooting at Defense 3 Wildman of Dunland, where I had a major advantage wounding them on 5s, and when you can bring 35 bow shots to bear on 12 guys that are Defense 3, you've got a pretty good chance of knocking out 7 or 8 of them. Um, but I think my best turn might have been like maybe the second turn of round 1, where I killed 2 guys outright and 3 horses against the Rohan player. Otherwise, it was usually 2 kills here, 3 kills there. And I mean, those do add up. I think that this event also definitely favored me. Domination is a 24-inch deployment range. To the death is a 12-inch deployment range. So I've got a lot. It takes you a long time to get to me, and I got a lot of time to shoot you. And then Fog of War is the same way. It's a 12-inch deployment range, so I got a long time to shoot at you, while you have to come to me. So,
I
but
agree. No, I agree. Those two scenarios, I guess the deployment does help you out.
yeah, I mean,
Um,
if it was Reconnoiter or Contest of Champions or even a Maelstrom scenario, I'm probably in trouble. Or like Heirlooms of Ages Past. Yeah, those scenarios would not favor me at all.
well, you want to go into your third game?
Yep. So third game, I played against David, who had just apparently come down to a priority roll off with Joe to win in round two. So he and I were playing for the top table, and we played on the what the one you played on, Dan.
The
Uh,
ruins,
yeah, the
not
Osgiliath
yeah.
Ruins one. I think that's what they were calling it. Was Osgiliath. Um, so he had his Mumok, like Joe talked about. Um, find it. The heck, really? I'm trying to find my picture of the board I have so I can kind of remember. There it goes. So I can remember what happened. All right, so he had his Mumok, he had Suladon. That was it. Those were his two heroes. He had the Royal Mumok and Suladon. So Fog of War, well, obviously the only hero I can choose to try and kill is Suladon. The only hero he can choose to defend is Suladon. So that kind of makes my life really hard because I don't have a very good track record against Suladon. Both against I mean I didn't do any wounds to Johns. I just got him off his horse in the round before, and then I played against him a number of times with other people, and I don't think I've ever really killed him. So my track record against Suladon is not very good. I was not looking forward to trying to uh, kill him to score 3 victory points, or even to put a wound on him for that matter. Um, so we chose our deployment sides, and I picked a side that was probably going to benefit me the most because there was one alleyway that the Moonmok could charge down, and that was probably going to be about it. Um, and then there was a lot of terrain. It was actually well placed terrain for him because it limited my number of bows I could shoot. Um, so we deploy. He moves up. He's got Suladon protected pretty well, which is smart. I spent the first turn concentrating. I spent Golem's Point of Might right away to call a heroic shoot so I could shoot first. He countered it with the Mumok, which was okay. I'm fine with that. That you spend some might there. I'm not worrying about you. Means I don't have to worry about you marching to get on top of me. Um, he won the shoot off. Took all like 8 or 9 shots that he could with the warriors that were at the front of the howdah and the tops going up the tiers. Shot all at Damrod. And I was like, well, crap. That's not good. Proceeded to hit with like 7 of like the 8 or 9. I was like, oh, well, this is gonna go bad real fast. Rolled 2 6s. No, I'm sorry, rolled 3 6s. I was like, oh, okay, well, congratulations. I'm assuming that's who you're going for. You just got your 3 victory points. He's like, well, aren't you gonna try and save it? I was like, he's a minor hero. He's only got 1 wound and 1 fate. You did 3 wounds. He's dead. He's like, oh, and I could just kind of see him do a mini like jerk, like, oh, well, okay. Uh, he did a good job getting his poker face back on, but I was like, yep, that's what he's going for. Damn it. So I went ahead and did my shooting, and I picked off like 3 of the 5 guys he had on foot around the Moonmok. So next turn he moves up. I started maneuvering my left flank, realizing I wasn't going to have a lot of shots. So I needed to start moving my guys up the board in order to go try and capture my terrain piece. Because Fog of War, you got to go get terrain. And being 6-inch moving, I want to slow play it enough that won't give it away at the very first like 3 or 4 turns, but I don't want to, not move up the field at the same time. So I took about 8 guys and just moved them up the left flank, and then did a few guys on the right flank too to position them to kind of make it look like, hey, which way am I going for? Am I going for the right? Am I going for the left? He moved the Moomok forward. I spent a turn shooting at the Moomok Beastmaster guy. I took out the other two guys, or one of the other two guys that were on foot. He went and hid one of them in the ruins that were on his side to try and slow me down, I'm assuming. I think I did 1 wound to the Beastmaster. He faded out of it. Good for him. That works out really well. I was able to get a couple pop shots at a few of the Suladon Serpent Riders, and I think I took one of them off their horse and killed another one. He moves up again. At this point, he's within a turn of charging me with the Moonmok and being able to trample. So I did a tactical retreat. I went and moved everybody that was going to be in range to be hit by his trample, their full movement to get as far away. I wanted to try and put as much space and distance between me and him as I could so that the Moomok couldn't trample me. Since the weakness to it is once it gets moving in one direction, it has to stay in that direction for the duration of the turn. So he came at the middle of my line, and I basically just took my line and split my forces in two. Moved the majority of my guys, including Madril, Sam, Faramir, Golem, and Frodo, to the right. And while I was doing that, he had brought Suladon down. It was hiding behind a piece of terrain. And I went ahead and was like, okay, moved my right flank half over and was able to see 2 of the Serpent Riders that were peeking out and took some pop shots at them and killed both of them. Next turn, he went ahead and called a heroic movement because I was in range and I would have been able to charge the rest of his guys. Well, he called a heroic movement with Suladon, but Suladon was behind a building, so he charged out, whipped around, tried to charge my guy. I was like, you can't do that. You can't see him, can you? And he's like, oh, you're right. I can't. And he wasn't in range to get to the guys that he could see because he was like, I don't know, 11 inches away or something like that. So I would have been able to charge his one cav guy, but his cav guy wouldn't have been able to get to me. So he moved one guy in, set me up perfectly. I charged in with Faramir, Madril, whole bunch of guys, and heroic combated off of him and basically set myself up right in front of Suladon because I couldn't see Suladon myself to do a slingshot into him, but I could set myself up where next turn it would come down to a roll off to whoever got the heroic movement and get the charge. So he got priority. No, I got priority. He called the heroic move. I actually didn't counter. I did. No, I lied. I did counter. He won the roll off, charged into Madril, charged his 2 remaining Serpent Riders against my guys. I think he had 1 Serpent Rider actually on foot, and the other one was mounted. Countercharged with a whole bunch of guys. I had Faramir just completely surrounded Suladon. He was completely surrounded. He called a heroic strike. Yeah, with his last point of might. No, he didn't. He was out of might. I'm sorry. He was out of might. So I was able to strike up. No, that's a lie. We both struck up. There we go. We both struck up. We both hit fight 10. We both rolled the 6. 50-50 roll off. It went my way. I had him completely surrounded. That big 40 millimeter base unfortunately works against you. I think I had like 5 or 6 guys almost in base contact plus supports. So I was throwing like so many dice, ridiculous amounts of dice. At least 20. Because I had Faramir and Madril in there. So defense 5, needing 5s to wound with all my guys. I think I threw like 6 wounds. So there's no way for him to even fade out of it. And it worked out really well because I was able to kill him. On the other side of the board, I continued moving my guys up, and he had the one guy that was left, and I killed him, took my terrain piece. So the game goes until somebody's broken. Well, by that point, he had only killed about 5 or 6 of my guys because I kept just running away from the Moonmok. And he finally got the Moonmok lined up where he could run over probably Sam and Frodo and like 6 or 7 Rangers. So he gets moving, hits the first Ranger. dead. Hits the second ranger, dead. Runs into Sam, completely botches the roll. He needs threes. He threw a 1, a 2, and then I think a 3 and a 4. I mean, it was like a small straight if you're playing Yahtzee. And I was like, okay, I've got 2 points of fate with Sam. Threw both points of fate. Only really need to pass one of them, which is what I passed. Sam took a wound. Stopped the trample of the Moomok right then and there. He was like, oh, well, that just happened. I was like, yeah, that's crazy. Don't expect a little hobbit to stop the trampling of a giant Moomok. Um, so that combat went down. Actually won the combat. Crazy as that sounds. Didn't do any wounds. Uh, so we get to the next turn, and by that point, I had killed all the models on the ground of his that I could possibly. The only way for me to break him is to actually start shooting into the howdah and try and pick off guys. And he realized that he needed to try and go and break me, so he actually pivoted away from Sam and Frodo. Frodo had the ring on at that point, and I was actually able to get another turn of combats in against the Moomok with Frodo and Sam and like a Ranger Vithilian supporting that did no damage. But he moved the Moomok towards uh, Faramir. At this point, I had repositioned Faramir, Madril, and about 20 Rangers, so I just had another gun line in a whole different section of the board. And when he spun the Moomok around to come after them, I got an entire turn of shooting and picked off 3 guys in the howdah, which was enough to break him. And we rolled to see if the game would end, and he rolled a 1, so the game ended. And at that point, I had killed the guy I needed to kill, which was 3. I got my terrain piece and was uncontested, which was another 3. I chose to protect Frodo, who I was really close to having run over by a Moomok, but I didn't take any wounds and he was protected. So that was another 3. And then I had broke him and was unbroken. So that was my final 3. So I scored all 12 victory points for that scenario and gave up 6 to him because he had moved the Moomok into contact with the terrain piece he was trying to capture on the final turn. And so that was 3 for him, uncontested, which I was fine with. I didn't want anybody near that Moonmock if I could avoid it. And he had killed the guy he was trying to kill, which was Damrod. So it was a 12-6 major victory for me. So that was 3 rounds, 3 major victories.
That's pretty
So,
dang solid, man. I guess it was Sam's love for the Moomok that remember in the book he keeps saying, "Oh, the elephant."
yeah, no one at home would believe me.
Yeah, yeah. So I guess it was Sam's love for the elephant that.
I mean, as crazy as it sounds, it's kind of thematic. A Moonmog versus the Rangers, like that scene in the Two Towers.
Yeah, David even said that afterwards. He's like, "Well, I mean, I kind of expected to lose because they lost in the movie, so it only seems fair." I was
Yeah.
like, "Yeah, well, it might seem fair to be thematic, but I mean, you should definitely win if you win." I was like, "I wouldn't be mad if you won." Yeah, I told him, I was like, I played like the biggest coward. I ran away the majority of the time. My
No, I
shooting,
mean, I only wish I had that option. The 2 games I had, but the one game was domination, where I kind of had to fight that thing to get to the objective. Another one was to the death, where I didn't have to fight it, but I didn't really have anywhere to run because I was literally stuck between a rock and a hard place. So
Well, no, dude. It sounds like you played it like a G. I mean,
yeah. So what'd you think versus that Royal Moonlock?
I think I spent my first couple turns shooting, like I said, trying to take out the Mumok
War leader.
I don't know. Yeah, the war leader. And I realized that if you have shooting, it's because if you remove the war leader, just a regular infantry guy, one
Yeah,
of the guys
exactly.
in the Howdah takes over.
Yeah.
So I realized if it's a scenario like capture and control or domination or even fog of war, where leader victory points don't really matter or they're very hard to get, then you really probably ought to focus shooting at the guys in the Howdah because he had all of them with bows. And I will say, after his first turn of shooting, where he picked off Damrod and got like 3 6s, his shooting did absolutely nothing for him. He would score some hits, but the majority of the time he was missing, and even when he was scoring hits, he wasn't killing. I think when he got close to my lines right before I really split, he got 2 more kills, but that was it. So I would say if you've got like crossbows like you do, Joe, uh, for like Isengard, or if you got some really good shooting like Elven shooting, take some shots. See if you can't get a wound, at least get a victory point. But I realized I probably shouldn't have been spending so much time um, focusing on trying to wound or kill him, and should have been shooting those 2 turns at the guys in the Howdah. A, it would have mitigated the shots coming back at me, and B, I would have broken them maybe a turn or 2 earlier, which would have, when the Moonmock looked like it was getting ready to run over Frodo, I was like, well, there goes Frodo, and it was kind of one of those like, oh shit, I shit my pants moments, and thank God Sam was there to stop him, but it's a tough play. It's a tough play. I only got into combat with it like twice.
Yeah, it seems like this chariot on steroids.
Yeah.
So
It,
I
Did he
don't
get a
even.
chance? Did he get a chance to ignore any of your heroic movements?
he attempted to do one so it's any heroics. The first
Is
time it's called in a turn,
yeah,
and he attempted to nullify my heroic movement when I called it. When I had my heroic move off with between Suladon and Madril,
yeah,
and um, he failed, but then won the roll off to move first anyway. And then on that combat where he and I both struck up to fight 10, my Faramir I positioned on the far side, and I was sitting at 12 and a half inches away from the war leader, so he couldn't nullify it.
yeah. I actually didn't realize. So like the game when I versed him the first time, I didn't realize, and I went back and read his rules afterwards just because I was like so unfamiliar with it, and I didn't realize it was the first heroic he can nullify. So when I versed him the second time, I was like, I'm gonna call a heroic movement with Starman. Then he of course ignored it, and I'm also gonna call one of Lurt's, in which I was able to call. So
Uh,
that's a good tidbit.
oh, okay. So it's only the first time one's called in the round. Or I thought it was per hero. Each time the first time a hero calls a heroic.
Oh, it might be. I don't know. Regardless, he wasn't able to. He didn't. At least he didn't roll to negate it when I had two alerts. So
Yeah, he had a rough time when you played him at the local event. He negated a whole bunch of yours in the first turn.
yeah. But yeah,
But
that sounds like a good game. I don't think so. Like, here's my opinion, guys, on this. We actually talked about this. So when you're playing table one, and the winner of the game will dictate. It depends. Okay, so it depends. There's a lot of variables. David, I think I get the vibe that David wants to be a podium player. He plays very meticulous, very smart, and that's why I'm impressed because he's so new.
yeah, he's a very
Um,
good player.
and when I say like our game came to a roll off, he did a lot of things to make it go to a roll off. I'm not saying that's the only reason why he won, but um, when you're playing table one and you're playing for the podium, it depends. I guess it kind of depends on the players. But if both players really want it, and they want a podium, which I think David did, then you got to play to your strength. If you went gung ho in there and didn't run away and tried to just play sloppy and get a lot of bow shots off, you were gonna lose.
Yeah.
And I think you played it. By the time you played it just how you needed to.
Yep.
Well, I will say this. I definitely used the terrain to my advantage. Um, you guys can see this. I'm gonna drop this picture in here from the event. So, Dan, you played on the board, and this photo is actually from the first round where you played it. So when I was talking about using the terrain to my advantage, uh, there it is. Excuse me. Come on, upload. There it is. All right, so you look at this photo. The really only way that he could come at me was straight down the middle,
Yep.
and that's why I split my forces and had half of them go left towards like this archway you can see, and half of them goes right towards these ruins. And from there, it's really hard to maneuver that big base. It actually got to the point where it took him 3 turns to maneuver heading towards the right side of the board because I was playing on the side that Dan's on. Because to turn that base, he was going to hit the gazebo that you can see there, and
Yeah.
you can't displace the terrain. So he can move his base around the terrain, but he can't displace the terrain. So it took him 3 turns to just move, and I mean the second turn was just turning like at a 45-degree angle and coming forward 4 inches. So the next turn he could finish moving and go straight down that alleyway. And when he did that, I was like, okay, well, I've got him trapped there, and that's why I ran to the top where you can kind of see John's riders deployed in the upper portion of that photo.
Yeah.
And that's where I built my second gun line. So after Sam and Frodo scared away the elephant, I was able to shoot at him and kill the guys in the howdah to break them.
Well, that's one of the things that people have to be careful about when they take, because there've been boards where I really didn't want to play on it with my chariot just because of how hard it would be to do anything with it. And that's
Yeah,
kind of the job of terrain, is to, scenarios are sometimes tailored to counter armies, and terrain is also kind of tailored sometimes to counter certain armies.
yeah.
And you
Well,
might,
I think that kind of falls on the TO too, is to make sure a board is not overly terrained. I think you should have it so that any model in the game can move around, except for
yeah.
maybe Smaug, because Smaug is ridiculous with his base. But yeah, I would say that they had their board set up really well because that Moonmach could move around pretty freely, and I think that's one of the larger bases in the game outside of the Iron Hills Chariot. And you and I both play that, Dan, so we both know what a pain in the rear end it can be moving that thing around.
Yeah.
So
It would be nice to have. I was actually thinking earlier today, it'd be cool to see Sauron go against the Moonmach.
I mean, they're the same points value.
Yep.
Yeah, I think because I was actually funny you mentioned it. I was thinking because okay, so the Royal Moonmach is such a powerhouse, and I'm like I haven't seen them a whole lot. Like I know like people have their opinions on Moonmachs, and I normally think a regular Moonmach's kind of meh. But this special one, the war leader on the Royal Moonmach, very solid. But I was thinking about models that can deal with him, like of course Azog, but in the same time, Bull got 1 turn trampled by him. He killed my Bull with 1 trample.
You kind of you'd have to really have the priority. The one thing that allowed me to tie it up 1 turn is I had the priority, and crazy as it sounds, I did a courage check with Golem and charged it. So
No, tie it up for sure.
Yeah, and Golem's a good piece because he has might and fate.
yeah, and I didn't mind having Golem die. I figured if that was the guy he was actually going to try and kill, then by all means go ahead and kill Golem.
So here's the 2 models, because I was like, how did Sauron the Necromancer do against a Moonmach? I actually think Sauron the Necromancer would have a pretty good time versus that Moonmach. Yeah. Between chill Soul and the ability to half health it or half wound it with his special ability.
Oh yeah, it's true. What's the fight value of the Necromancer?
7. He's fight 7.
Well, the one thing that could be a problem is the fact that the Royal Moonmach can call heroic strike against the leader, and if you're playing with with the Necromancer, he's probably going to be your leader. So there's a very good chance that he ends up having a higher fight value than you, and the Necromancer only has 1 attack.
Yeah,
so,
I mean, situationally though, if you can get some more guys in there with the Necromancer.
Yeah, fair enough.
Or like some of those ring rates.
The Necromancer is only 250, so if you're talking like mono point for point, yeah, you get 150.
Well, I think regular Sauron would be able to tank him, and then pretty easily win him. Is the Balrog fight 10? Right, the Balrog's fight 10.
Balrog is fight 10. Yes.
And I think the Balrog would have a pretty good time versing him too.
Yeah.
No armies that I play, so like, I think I could beat it with Rohan. It'd be a tough game. It would highly depend on the scenario.
Yes, I think that's the biggest thing.
Hobbits. I don't think Hobbits have the mobility to beat that Moonmach. Like they don't have the movement.
I have a hard time moving Frodo and Sam around. I won't lie.
Yeah, you can't escape a trample, and things like that. Thranduil's Hall's Iron Hills. I think I could beat the Moomock with that, just because of the tools in that list.
Potentially,
I think I could beat it with. I could have beaten it with Isengard, but it would boil down to the scenario, and it would
Yeah.
be. I don't know.
Well, that's a thing for a lot of lists. Like I said, I mean, yeah, I won all 3 games with this army for this event. But had it been an event where the 3 scenarios were contest of champions, seize the prize, and reconnoiter or hold ground, I'm having a much harder time winning because then I can't sit there and shoot, which is what my army's whole you know game plan is. So at the end of the day, scenario does dictate a lot.
Yeah.
It does.
Well, and for your efforts, did you place Jason?
Yeah, I got first.
That was a big reveal, guys. Jason got first place of this event with his Rangers list, his Rangers of Fairmare's Rangers LL. So I think it's
I will
awesome.
say it was a good time. It was a good event. I was that guy. I did almost change armies about 2 days ahead of time because I've been talking to Chad, who like, again, kudos and shout out to Chad for TOing. And he had said that there were 5 good and 3 evil, and I was like, well, I can switch to an evil army if you want even matchups for good versus evil. He's like, nah, man, you switch armies and drop out all the time. Play what you want. And I was like, well, okay, I want to try out and see how this new nerf with having to include Frodo and Sam and Golem actually works out. So, works out pretty well.
Yeah. Plus, you have the ring if you need it. I mean, there
Yeah.
are circumstances where you might need the ring.
Having that, crazy as it sounds, Golem, I used his might in every game. I mean, 2 of them were to call heroic shoots. As crazy as it sounds and unthematic as well, the fact that he can still call a heroic shot because it's universal to all heroes uh, really helped me out. And then I did a heroic movement in the 3rd game. So yeah, I like it. I think it did what all the GVHL people wanted and made it probably harder to play at like that 500, 600 point limit that they play over there. But for the US, where we play in the 7 to 800 range, hell, I think it made it more viable.
Yeah, I agree. I think that it gave you some good tools, and plus, just Gollum's profile is pretty good for some reason.
Yeah, he's strength 4, defense 4, 2 attacks, 2 wounds with a fate, and he's never unarmed. It's like, what the?
Yeah, I know. It's like crazy good, dude. I remember the arena. I'm like, what?
He was the reason that I ended up getting a wound against Thaden
That
in the
little.
first game.
How? Here's what I don't get is how is okay. So, how is he strength 4? The same strength as like an Urukai.
I'm assuming it's because of the fact that he's had to live underground and crawl around on his hands and knees amongst the rocks inside the mountain forever.
Doesn't he have like 5-inch movement too?
Yeah, he does.
Yeah,
They,
so
they do talk about Gollum in the book being kind of like he doesn't look as strong as he is. He's like surprisingly strong for his.
like yeah, I
Sneaky.
remember that. No, I mean I've never in the 15 years I've played SVG, I've never actually used Gollum like ever.
Well, I mean,
Actually,
he's so rarely used because the only way you can take him is if you have Frodo.
and I actually don't have a Gollum model now that you mention it.
I actually had to paint one up for the event.
I think it's cool, man. Well, hey, congratulations on your first place.
Thank you, thank you.
Are there any other thoughts about the tournament? I had a good time. Chad ran a really good event.
Yeah, it's fun now. Like I've enjoyed going to the last 2 events, bringing like complete testy kind of armies. I've enjoyed playing evil. I rarely play evil. I played evil the last 2 events, so I've enjoyed that.
Yeah, I think it was interesting armies we had there. Half of the and some people are going to groan at this because I know some people's thought process, but half of the armies were legendary legions. So
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
dude, I tell you what, man, Legendary Legions are awesome. I mean,
They really
like
are.
for Gondor, there's not really one I like besides maybe the Rangers. I wouldn't play with that because I can't use LSR. So GW, if you're listening to this, release a really good LSR LL so I can use it, please.
Someone would reply, Blackgate opens. Oh wait,
Uh,
that or that what?
No,
That's is that the
Men of the
name?
West. Men of the West.
like
Man of
I
the West.
said, a good LL.
Yeah.
And that's not even
LSR.
like that's not even Gondor. That's Men of the West because that's
Yeah,
Yeah.
got fiefdoms and Rohan.
such a
I would love
disappointment.
to see. This is kind of off topic, but I would love to see a supplement come out in the future, like Defense of Osgiliath or something like that. Maybe a small one. I mean, they made Quest of the Ring Bearer and Scouring of the Shire, which in my opinion were two very good but small supplements. Why not a Defensive Osgiliath type supplement where we have something centered around? I know this isn't Aragorn, but something centered around
Boromir.
Boromir. You
Yeah,
know?
I would say that'd be a good shot.
Well, even like the new one that they just announced, the Fall of the Necromancer. That's gonna be a small supplement. I don't imagine that being, you know,
Yeah, I mean, how much
massive.
more can they add to that?
When
There,
you
there could be a legendary legion for the. From what I hear, there's a legendary legion coming for the White Council. Didn't know they needed one. I thought the White Council was its own army.
Oh, now they got a Legendary Legion.
I tell you one thing that's interesting. You know the history of SBG here. You remember when the Necromancer first came out, and he came out along with Thranduil. The
Yeah,
old, the old,
there was actually a supplement called Fall of the Necromancer, was it
yep,
not, or
yep,
something along
and
those
they,
lines?
yep, and that's where they introduced the Necromancer and Thranduil, and I believe there's another profile they introduced in that supplement.
A lot of the Legion
Radagast.
stuff, was there not? Like the
Radagast.
cart,
Yeah, Radagast, yeah.
the court guys, the guard of the Legion court and all that. Weren't they part of that supplement, or is that my
Yeah,
imagination?
I don't remember. I think that they might have been, but yeah, just kind of going full circle. I mean, now we're getting another supplement, but it's kind of
Well,
gonna be rebranded and
well,
modernized.
well. Think about it this way: the Scouring of the Shire was literally a supplement before, called Scouring of the Shire.
So maybe take
That's
a look at some of those older supplements, and that's kind of what they're working with.
yeah. That's not a
Yeah,
bad idea though.
and I think it's fine because basically ever since the Hobbit movies came out, it changed pretty much everything in terms of for
Profiles.
instance profiles. Yeah, like
Yeah.
Thranduil, we now have seen him in the films and at
It's
least
also changed the
yeah,
models that you'd use.
yeah,
I mean, the old Thranduil model was cool, but compared to the new one, no contest, honestly.
exactly. Well,
Plus,
even
the new one's got much better ability.
Yep.
there's one model that I actually liked better from the GW line that was in the Peter Jackson movies, and that's Radagast. I really liked the Radagast, the brown model they had,
But yeah.
com-
Yeah, I
com-
have that model. Yeah.
compared to the new like homeless, whatever he is, bird poop on his
Or
face.
poop on the-
I don't
Which
know.
I
I
would.
enjoyed painting that bird poop. Thank you very much.
Well, okay, so I will say this: I respect. I don't. They didn't ever mention them in like the books and stuff. I don't think, but that one scene where Saruman's talking shade about him eating the mushrooms, his overconsumption of mushrooms.
They addled his teeth or no, addled his mind and yellowed his teeth.
Yeah, I love
So
that, dude. Well, do you guys have any final thoughts?
no,
Oh,
I mean I don't. Basically, any final thoughts I'd say is if you guys are gonna play Isengard, I recommend taking Saruman. Um, that's basically that.
Yeah, I actually do have a final thought I want to say. Just after playing this version of Lake Town now for 2 tournaments, I
Yeah.
think that Lake Town is better being allied with something or something being allied with it. Um,
right.
They
so I,
got really good stuff that are green allies to be allied with.
yeah, so that's kind of my final thoughts. I've played them a lot. I know, that might be popular, but maybe just for my play style. And if you guys kind of watch the videos and like the way I play, then maybe you agree, maybe you disagree. That's totally fine. But that's my final thoughts for Lake Town this event.
I thought it was a good event. Well done, John, Chad, and Jake Smith, who's one of I think he's I'm not sure if he's the owner or one of the guys who just helps run the store there, but it was for the opening of the store, and it was a really nice place. Everybody was really cool, really nice folks. I look forward to getting back there for another event in the future. So thanks, guys, for being good hosts.
All right, guys. Well, please like, share, subscribe, and comment below. And as always, enjoy your Middle Earth hobby.